This is Luca Majno here with Frank Gregory Ford again. We're back for another edition of Global News Update on TLBTV, where we bring you complete backstage, up-to-date info and on the developments that were occurring and that are occurring in the world today. We have some pretty fascinating stuff to talk about, up-to-date and reoccurring things that happen. We have to start with 9/11 today because we've got a lot to say. I'm going to start it, and I'm sure Gregory's going to he's going to be itching to weigh in on this stuff. Found a very interesting article called The Italian Mafia, the Jesuits, and the 9/11 Gold Heist. So this is how we connect the dots, and this is very important to get this straight. As we said on the last show, connecting the dots, talking about past events, talking about what's happening today, and talking about the projected future afterwards. I'd like to thank Kevin Albert, in French you say Kevin Albert, for this post. He's living in Canada. Why am I doing this? First of all, because as we saw and we talk about in a lot of shows, Frank Gregory Ford's trial, it's practically worth nothing because the Supreme Court will not touch it. Well, guess what? They're not going to touch this either, because this would bring the House of Cards down even faster than any other case. It was the mafia-connected companies that got the contracts for the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey to clean up the debris after 9/11. The executives at the Port Authority were found guilty of racketeering and bribery involving millions of stolen cash from federal aid for Ground Zero cleanup. The Port Authority has a history of organized crime. However, on 9/11, the Port Authority's records were destroyed. Guess why? Because they were located in Tower 7, among other things, like over 4,000 cases that they were investigating of Wall Street corruption, blah, 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 and so many other things, CIA, FBI, and other offices. Anyway, the major cleanup companies employed on 9/11 used smaller contractors to carry out most of their work. Many of the smaller contractors were connected with the Italian Mafia. The major companies for the 9/11 cleanup were funded with over $450 million for their work. The larger companies used smaller subcontractors, and many of these companies were tied with the five families and their associates. The subcontractors' payments were in the range of $60 million out of that $450 million in cleanup aid. It is believed that about $63 million went to mafia-connected construction and cleanup companies. The Italian Mafia are known for having deep involvement at the Jersey ports and associates in New York and New Jersey Port Authority. On September 11, 2000, and this is where it gets good, Donald Rumsfeld, who was Jesuit educated from Georgetown, remember that, he ran the Department of Defense as Secretary of Defense. George Tenet, who was also Jesuit educated from Georgetown, ran the Central Intelligence Agency. And Michael Copps, who's a Jesuit professor at Loyola University of New Orleans, ran the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, which regulates all broadcasting inside the U.S. Are we starting to connect the dots here? The U.S. Armed Forces, okay, all in all, the U.S. Armed Forces, the CIA, and the FCC were all under the supervision of Jesuit alumni and professors. Okay, the real theft on 9/11 goes back to Franklin D. Roosevelt and his Executive Order 6102, which criminalized the ownership of gold in the United States, and we're showing that now, and demanded that all gold be handed in under the threat of fines and or imprisonment. The gold was covertly held underneath the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. Well, on 9/11, William Joseph McDonough was president of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York and was Jesuit educated from Georgetown, and he oversaw this theft. After 9/11, the gold was removed from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York under disguise of Ground Zero debris. The gold was then shipped out through the Jersey ports and sent to London and Rome. Very quickly, the De Cavalcanti crime family of Elizabeth, New Jersey, are covertly running the ports in Elizabeth, New Jersey. Franklin D. Roosevelt, if you remember, if anybody knows, was educated at the British Crown established Harvard University and was a Shriner Freemason. And I got to say this about Rudy. Rudy Giuliani was knighted by both Italian House of Savoy and the British House of Windsor, and he was completely in other words, guilty and complicit of 9/11. On 9/11, Frederick Whitten Peters was Secretary of the United States Air Force and was educated at Harvard University and the London School of Economics. The 9/11 Gold Heist was a long-term premeditated scheme carried out by the black nobility of Rome and the British nobility, which are covertly working together. Both these groups are closely working with the House of Saud, which they used as a scapegoat, and in return provided the Saudi family with a portion of the stolen gold and business dealings in Europe and the United States. In other words, 9/11 was a biochemical attack on the American people, and that is why over 3,000 FEMA members were in New York City 2 days before 9/11 in preparation, which further shows more of their premeditation. So in closing, we can basically say that Rome's Jesuits and the Vatican Knights, along with the Freemasons and British Crown Knights, orchestrated 9/11 and used the Italian Mafia's control over the Port Authority, along with London-connected AMEC construction to ship out the gold and deliver it to London. So that's a mouthful, okay? And this is the stuff that comes out because you cannot hide a crime. Didn't my mother say that? When you lie, everything comes out. Greg, welcome to the show.
Oh, well, thank you. Boy, is this a great day. And you did a great introduction. Thank you, Luca. Okay. Boy, things are beginning to come out. Now, pardon the pun, I just heard that Bill Clinton, this is just a rumor, but it's probably true. Mm-hmm. Bill Clinton has AIDS. Oh my goodness. Boy, there is a God, isn't there? All right. The only thing that concerns me about Bill Clinton, okay, is all the pedophilia he's been engaged in, okay? And what has that done for all those victims, all right? If he has AIDS, they're HIV positive for sure, okay? So let's everybody keep an eye on it. Does Bill Clinton have AIDS? Of course he does, all right? Is that Kaposi sarcoma that is exhibiting on his face? Of course it is. Now, where does that put Hillary Clinton in terms of running pedophilia rings? Okay, let's get down to this gold business. All right. As everybody knows, I and my counterintelligence group were briefed by Able Danger on when that was going to happen. Okay. Funny, everybody and their brother seems to know about it. I mean, the CIA made all kinds of money. I'm sorry. The Cocaine Importation Agency made all kinds of money on it. Okay. Buzz Krongard, the deputy director, okay, all his puts and calls. And then he had the nerve to throw Susan Landauer into prison because she called her family. She was notified before. She called her family and said, stay away from New York. Mm-hmm. So here, yes, we've got something going on. Okay, and then what happens in New York? Okay, the world's best built buildings, the World Trade Center, specifically reinforced to withstand a 747 strike, a whole lot bigger than what hit them. Okay, well, plenty of firefighters had all kinds of reports saying there was molten metal flowing down those girders. Now, they were flowing, of course they were cut, all those girders were cut with sulfonated thermite. The sulfonated thermite was confirmed there, being in the wreckage 7 minutes after the buildings fell. Samples were taken, 7 minutes. Okay, so that means that all those girders were conducting flowing metal into the basement of those two big buildings. Well, can you think of a better way to remove a couple of tons of gold or more than covering it in something that looks like aluminum, liquid aluminum, and then ripping it out of the ground, okay, when the salvage effort was implemented, and off it goes. They load it in the great big trucks with heavy equipment. Nobody ever sees a thing because it's completely covered in a bathtub of liquid iron, steel, aluminum. Okay. Now, what I find interesting is I heard a report no more than 8 hours ago that some of the gold that they're using as the gold standard seems to be polluted. Okay. You know, all the gold that they're saying now is out there, it seems to be polluted with high tensile strength metals, okay, and titanium. Now, where would they get something like this? Where would they get gold that was polluted with other highly refined industrial metal products? Anybody care to venture a guess? Okay, well, all right, so there I was, okay? You know, we'll just jump this up a little bit. There I was in the city of Samarra, Iraq, the Golden City. Uh-oh, there's that four-letter word again, gold, okay? You know, look in the Bible. The ancient city of Samarra was known as the ancient gold market of Samarra. And I walk next door, and what do I find? You know, I walk next door with a psychological warfare unit as escort. I walk next door because a group had just moved in. And what do I find in the old hospital that was ravaged in Samarra? But I find an Al-Qaeda group. Okay, Al-Qaeda. Yes, that sinister, you know, on-call, on-tap, mercenary group. Okay, yeah. Anybody want a terrorist strike? Just pick up the phone and call 1-800-Al-Qaeda. Okay, guaranteed it works very well. Okay, you know, place, number of people dead, it's all up to you for a fee, of course, for a fee. Remember, Al-Qaeda was always started by the CIA. How did that happen? Okay, well, so there I am talking to this group. Very clearly, they're from Saudi Arabia, Saud Arabia, okay? And we had some interesting conversations because I recognized the fellow who had been in front of the Kaaba a few weeks before talking about how the Israelis were pigs and the Americans were monkeys, all right? And here we are facing each other, okay? So that fellow, you know, he and I are talking, and he says, hey, well, we're here because of the gold market. We moved some material in, and we need to broker it in the gold market. Oh, really? Okay. Well, I didn't say anything at that point because I'm not supposed to know anybody in the gold market in Samarra, especially dealing with somebody I didn't know at the time was Al-Qaeda, but they were Al-Qaeda. And so later on in the evening, after this historic meeting, okay, in Samarra with Al-Qaeda, and by the way, this was the Al-Qaeda group that blew up the Golden Mosque at Ascaraya, the Ascaraya Mosque that actually, when it was blown up, it started the insurrection and the end of our involvement, okay, in terms of being a legitimate invasion force in Iraq, all right? That's the group that caused it, that put the charges in the Golden Mosque and the Blue Minaret. Go online. As I'm talking about this, go online and type in Samarra, okay, the mosque at Samarra, all right? So what happened then is one of my sources came in and said, boy, you are lucky to be alive. That was Al-Qaeda you were dealing with. Oh, okay, I'm lucky I wasn't ripped, you know, piece by piece apart, okay? Well, he hands me the gold transfers, okay, that this group was making. Gold transfers coming from, of all places, New York. Oh my goodness, New York. Well, where would gold come from in New York? Imagine that. New York, London, all right, London. Remember our allies and all of this? Okay, supposed to be at least. They were the ones that got rid of the weapons of mass destruction, by the way, for the Bush family, so nobody would be able to tell that, yes, there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and the Bush family had sold their old contractor, Saddam Hussein, weapons of mass destruction. And here we were fighting them over it. So, yes, this paperwork was gold transfer, how to get rid of the gold, how to change numbers on gold, how to move it around from Rome to New York to London. Jeddah. Okay, Jeddah, and then the last place before it was loaded onto a truck in a crate, in several crates actually. There was a lot of gold, and moved from Mecca to Mecca, and moved from Mecca on a funded mission of mercy into Iraq to help the Iraqis deal with our invasion. Okay, gee, we create a war, we start a war, we create a terrorist attack. Okay, the Israelis come in to make sure it's done right. Hey, those Israelis, okay, they knew how to breach atomic containment chambers. Hey, bringing down those towers, piece of cake. Just ask those master demolition experts. Okay, you can see a picture of them doing their work online. Okay, so guess what? All that gold, that polluted gold that came out of the World Trade Center, okay, out of the basement, okay, it's processed and it shows up, starts showing up in places like Samara at the gold market and registry in Samara. It's only been that for 2,000 years, okay? So, and I said, well, I did some asking, some questioning from my source. He said, yes, this is funding their attacks on you folks, and attacks, okay, with Al-Qaeda Iraq, Al-Qaeda Arabian Peninsula, all right? They're funding it, you know, and he said, don't worry, you don't have to worry now. They're bringing in their experts to deal with the Shia minority, okay, which they do. They're setting up death squads in Iraq with this gold, okay? I dutifully reported all of this and took all the gold transfer documentation and gave it to my command. Oh my goodness, this was the command who decided to rendition me.
Right.
Okay, this is the same command who went to the CIA and said, absolutely do not let this case in court. My case in court. All right. No wonder it shouldn't go to court, because not only do we have all that gold that disappeared out of the WTC, okay, and showed up in places like London, okay, that is the premier city of the UK, correct? London, and then it shows up in Saudi Arabia, okay. Imagine that, all the people that contributed to 9/11, the attack on 9/11, and all the people helping to make this thing happen in the Middle East, here they are receiving big bucks in gold, okay? Big dollars in gold, all right? Now, please don't believe me, okay? Please look up Samara. Everybody go to their computer, look up Samara, Iraq. I'll find out, yes, it's called the Golden City. It's golden for a reason. And it's the golden brokerage, the gold market of the Middle East. All right? So that's where it shows up. Now, does anybody find that suspicious? I certainly do. Okay? Especially when my agents and my assets are pulling all this information, putting their own lives at risk to deliver it to us, to try to protect us. Okay? Forced protection, as they call it. Okay? So, yeah, that's what we have. Now, by the way, the commanding officer who had me renditioned, okay, and he's in the process of making sure the American public never finds out about those weapons of mass destruction. You can call him. Where is he at? Where is he located at? Okay, everybody has questions, but you want to know? I'll tell you and your listeners, Luca, I'm going to tell them. where they can find out about this gold heist, where the weapons of mass destruction are. He's in a place called McLean, Virginia. Anybody ever hear of McLean, Virginia? Home of every surreptitious, underhanded, snaky operation, that everybody from the agency, to DIA, to anybody else that wants to come up with something dirty. L3 even has an office there, okay? So, yes, he is there. And this commanding officer, okay, bless his little heart, okay, he and the second in command, okay, who renditioned me, had me tortured, and this all went into court. Guess what? He got a hold of all my documentation of gold transfer and made sure it was never brought to light for the American public. Ask him. He is working, okay? You can ask him right now. Call him. By all means, he'd be glad to hear from any of your listeners, okay? And call him at the Carlisle Group, okay? Booz Allen, the Booz Allen Group. Yes. Ask Mr. Ed Snowden if he's ever heard of the Booz Allen, okay? The Booz Allen Group, all right? And he heads up his own little intelligence unit that supplies commo and logistics to all the black ops units in the world. All the black ops units in the world that are busy cutting fingers, arms, torturing people, murdering people, okay, setting up, revolutions. Yes, he's there right now. What time is it? Okay, 4:45? Well, hey, he might not be there, but you can call him tomorrow morning, okay? And you can ask him about all this gold out of the WTC showing up through London, Rome, transfer to Jeddah, then Mecca, okay? And from Mecca, placed on 18-wheeler trucks and brought into the ground zero of the insurgency, Iraq, okay? So that's what I have to say about all this, okay?
Yeah, well, you know what? The NSA is listening too, because you're crackling up a storm.
Well, if anybody has any questions, and we got trolls out there, plenty of trolls, but these questions just keep coming up, Luca. And by all means, they can call you anytime and check on any part of these stories, okay?
Yeah.
Whose money was it? Whose gold was it? Okay. Now, Larry Silverstein. Boy, do I have a warm place in my heart for Larry Silverstein. Mr. owned the Port Authority for, what was it, 2 months? And brought in his own people immediately and put a contract together that was designed and tailor-made, that if he was attacked by, his property was attacked by terrorists, okay, how much he was going to get, double indemnity for both buildings. Oh, and then that old crappy building number 7. Okay, we'll just throw that in for good measure too. Okay, I think if we can find a decent, honest attorney general, I think we ought to pull Mr. Silverstein, in for a few questions. And while we're at it, let's bring Mr. Ben Netanyahu.
Well, you know what? It's really interesting because according to Christopher Bolin, and you can see him at bolin.com, BOLLYN.com, Netanyahu was calling Larry Silverstein every Sunday afternoon, and they would talk for hours. Now, why would that be? Why would BB be calling Larry every Sunday and talking for hours? It's little things like that we put together. But anyway, the show is coming to a close very quickly, of course, as usual when you get into it. So I'll give you the last word before I say goodbye.
Okay, by all means. And by the way, anybody want to know what Bernie Madoff did with all his Madoff money out of New York? It's $50 billion, okay, plus, that we know of, plus. Why don't we ask Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu if any of that money showed up in Israeli banks, okay? All right, and when we come back next time, let's go ahead and talk about the green zone in terms of Baghdad and transferring how much was it? $2.5 billion on any given week. Okay, transferred, on C-130s, transferred directly to, Nicosia and Larnaca. Okay, so yes, and those all went to select on Cyprus. Went to select addresses and PO boxes. Okay, for deposit. Okay, in deposit of anybody like Mr. Who is the premier of the UK?
Tony Blair.
Tony Blair. Yeah, that's who it was. Mr. Tony Blair. Oh, there's that loop again, back to the UK. Okay, coming right back from Iraq. All right. Yeah, and you know who told me that? It was a general who told me that. Because I was wondering where my 750 million got off to when it was stolen from one of my assets. And surprise, it was taken through the Green Zone. We've got movies starring Matt Damon called The Green Zone. Okay? So please, folks, you have any questions, call in. I'd love to answer some questions. And
So
don't troll reply.
This was not the Marrakesh Express like that song is called. It was called the Cyprus Express, right?
Cyprus Express. You have got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll talk about that next week. But thank you so much, Greg, for having us have another show. This is not my show. It's not your show. It's a co-host. So
right.
we're very proud to have the viewers that we have, and we're really proud to have the content, and we're even more proud to have you along, Greg. Thank you so much for being with us. This is another Global News Update show, and we'll see you in 2 days. Thank you so much.
Can't wait. Okay. There we are. Thanks so much, Luca.